to jump into as well. So we have on the call with us Nancy that is here from Moniepoint. Nancy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. So we're going to have Nancy talk about some of her process into how she's found open metadata and how she's been able to contribute to our open source project here. So please, Nancy, if you're ready, please take it away.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, good evening, everyone. And it's evening from my end. It's really great to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. Okay, so before I share my screen, I'll give a brief on how I came across open metadata. So I've actually heard about open metadata before recently. I just knew it as a metadata management tool. So recently, my manager at work told me that they were looking to integrate a metadata management tool, and he needed me to do a feature comparison between Data Hub and Open Metadata. So I did a kind of breakdown on the different features that both tools had, and I just loved the features that Open Metadata offered, especially in terms of hosting it, having it self-hosted, the kind of features it had, especially the part of the data quality test. That was one of the things that got me really interested in it. So I went onto the GitHub of Open Metadata, and I'm going to show you now how I made my first contributions to Open Metadata. So sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so when I browse for the GitHub of Open Metadata, I came here, right? So the first things I usually check when I browse for this is I scroll down and I check the language distribution. So I noticed that most of the tools here, they are most of them are something I was not familiar with except Python. So, well, Python was here and I said, okay, let me try contributing. But then when I went to the issues, and I was interested in using the labels, right? So most times I usually use the labels. So I come here. So I was like, okay, maybe it would take a while before I get acquainted with the code structure and everything. So I was like, let me try the documentation aspects. So I filtered on the documentation label, and that brought up some issues, some open issues. And I chose one of them that I was interested in, and that took me to this moment. Okay, that took me to this one here. I linked it, so I'll just open it. So that took me to this issue. Now, on this issue, when I read the whole description and saw the images, actually, one thing I also love about open metadata is the issues are usually clear to understand, and you won't need much guidance to start work on them. So this was a really comprehensive issue. And then I saw this param entity as the problem. Now, when I saw this, I was kind of familiar with it because I had worked with Sphinx before. So it was similar to a tool called Sphinx, right? So I actually thought that Open Metadata used it at first when I saw something like this, and maybe it was just a rendering issue. So what I did next was I forked Open Metadata repo on my um, on my GitHub, and then I went straight to cloning that repo on my local. So on my local, after cloning it, I went into VS Code, right? So coming onto VS Code, I start for, so coming back, let me go back. So what I did was, because I usually use Control F a lot or Command F if you're using Mac, when trying to do some contributions, I feel like it's easier to easily find what you're looking for. So what I did next was I just picked one phrase from here. So if I try opening here, something unique that would make me easily identify it. So let's say this, I copied it, came here, searched across the projects.
Mm.
So that brought me to the files that are involved. So when I came into the file, I made the necessary changes. So at first, I was still trying to use the usual Sphinx rendering, but I noticed it was not working until I noticed that the files had the .md file extension. That means it was marked down. So that was how I knew that all I needed to do was to do something, have just use backstrokes. So let me find this entity type. Yeah. So this was what needed to be changed. If you compare, you notice that what was there was param entity colon then entity type. So all I needed to do was put these backstrokes between entities. So it would then be rendered like this, that have this gray um highlights around it. So when I was done, I did not just make a pull request after making those changes. I needed to confirm that those changes I made actually work fine or they are rendered properly. So after doing the whole building, because I needed to go through just in case you've not contributed to open metadata for the first time, another thing I miss is when you come to the GitHub, you need to go through the contributing. Okay, okay, okay. Let me go back. So this is the first thing you need when you come on Open Metadata GitHub. So you scroll down to the contributing guide. So here, so I right clicked and opened in another tab, and that brought me here. So I went through this. Another thing that is important is you need to build the code, right? You need to install all the dependencies if you want this to work well. So I clicked this, and that brought me to this. So here, this is where you are going to install all the prerequisites and set up the project before you can be able to make your contribution, because any changes you are making, you need to test them properly before you make a pull request. So for me to test, I ran this command because this is for the documentation. And then that took me to this still loading. All right. Another issue you might have is trying to know the navigation to the page that you made changes to. So one thing I did was I looked at the progression of these files, that's the paths, rather the paths. So this is showing v1.10.x looks hyphen snapshots. So that one, let's say I do this instead, right? So coming here, this is just a common error that comes up sometimes. So can write something like 1.9.x SDK. You notice this SDK Python API hyphen reference. So I typed all that API reference, and then ometa underscore API. Now there's an issue with this underscore. If I type this and run it, okay. So this will not work. It's not finding the page. So if you see underscore in the file name, you have to change it to hyphen when you're trying to impute it here, when trying to find the page. So instead of underscore, I will change this to hyphen. And that brings us to the page. So if I want to search for that entity type, you will notice that that entity that I talked about, that backstroke, that one that had that backstroke, that is what is here. So you notice that it's now rendered here because that was a markdown file. So this issue, there were several files that had that same problem. So I worked on all the files, ensuring that instead of that column param word, I used the backstrokes instead. So that made it to be properly rendered. And that is what we have currently in the API documentation today. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, thanks for showing us that, and thank you not only for your contributions, but showing us testing as well. I think that that's a good reminder for us all on the call. Definitely myself included. don't just don't just submit a pull request without out testing. That was great. A great reminder. One that I need to not just hear but listen to. So I appreciate that. And then if I could have you for just a couple more seconds, Nancy, I had a question about you were talking about your manager wanted you to investigate different data governance tools. You were able to find open metadata through that. If you could estimate about how long was it between, when you got that project to when you had code um, merged into open metadata, kind of that timeline between, receiving that and then getting your contributions into the code base.
Okay, so that's working on that project, that took a while because I had a lot of it was more like it, let's say more like a personal project. It was something I was doing outside work. So I had other things to do with work.
Mhm.
So that took a while for me to complete the documents. I think that should be weeks. But from when I completed the documents to when I made my first contribution, I would say between 1 or 2 weeks. And that was because I had some sleepless nights,
Mhm.
staying up late beyond work hours to do my contribution. So yeah, it did not actually take time. Yes, it didn't take time.
Yeah, and I think with your help here and showing kind of your process, again, appreciate you taking that time and taking those weeks. But now seeing you walk through it, hopefully, new people that are coming into open metadata and looking to improve the documentation or improve open metadata in other areas, maybe it can take even less time, right? I think you showed some things here that some shortcuts, and it was really great to see that your contribution process. So. Thanks again, Nancy, and we really appreciate not only the code that you've added, but that walkthrough is really helpful to see your process. I hope that I
Thank you.
can mirror it though, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thanks again, Nancy.